Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. No special announcements or anything, so let's jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about is already sold out, but I still want to talk about it anyway for a whole bunch of reasons that I'll get into in a second. But Jan from Consoles for You had made some pre-populated Neptune boards that include everything except the proprietary Sega stuff. So that meant while it was in stock for about 85 bucks, you could just buy this board and then grab yourself a Genesis 2 and a 32X, most likely not even working because all you would really need is the chips, which don't often go bad, and then just transplant those onto this, exactly like what Tito from Macho Nacho Productions showed in his video from a while back that I linked right here in the post. And this was important because while you could get the PCBs made yourself, trying to find all of the different components to go on them is a massive pain. Anybody that's ever tried to make a bill of materials knows how hard it is because let's just say even one of the components is no longer available. Now you have to try to hunt down the exact equal thing. You have to double check sizes, values. I mean, it's probably realistic to say that ordering each of the parts that you need to populate this motherboard might take longer than transplanting the chips if you factor mistakes and everything else into it. So having a board that you could order that you just need to transplant the Sega chips, and a board that's been at least somewhat tested, which this one was, I think would be a giant help. So while it is out of stock, I wanted to explain to everybody what this was so that when it comes back in stock, you'll know exactly what to expect. This is not a just drop in to a Genesis 2 or Neptune shell and start playing thing. You still have to transplant the Sega chips and I think the controller ports as well. But other than that, this has everything that you'd need. So still an expert level mod, just something that saves you a ton of time and hassle, especially if you make a mistake. Because if you get it all right the first time, cool, you're still spending a lot of time ordering that bill of materials. But if you make one mistake, now you have to reorder parts, you have to pay for shipping, there's just a lot involved in that. So out of stock now, but I will repost if it comes back in stock. And I'm a big fan of this project. So check out the links and Tito's video for all the info that you would need on that. Next up, the YouTube channel More Fun Making It just posted the first review of the Mr. Multisystem 2, including reviews of the snack modules as well as different controller modules, and it's looking to be exactly what I expected, an absolutely awesome combination of the original Mr. Multisystem I/O board and the DE10 Nano all in one, with a bunch more options and a neat looking case and a whole bunch of cool stuff. So hopefully if you already wanted one of these, you got your pre-orders in, but if you were on the fence and you just wanted more details, this video and a couple others that I know of are coming up should hopefully push you over the edge, because this is really shaping up to be exactly what I had wanted and a pretty cool item. Just once again, another reminder that even though it's the Mr. Multisystem 2, it's the same FPGA that's in the DE10, so this isn't going to magically make anything run faster or run cores that the DE10 will not, so no Mortal Kombat on this. However, it's just everything, it's all of the best of the Mr. World smushed into one thing, and one board, not a whole bunch of stuff plugged into each other inside a case. So, which is, that's what had to be done because you used a very inexpensive dev board to make this stuff happen. So I'm absolutely not crapping on all previous designs, but this one's great. And check out the video if you want more info, and we'll post when other reviews come out as well. Pre-orders for the VMUPro are now open. The price is $80 plus shipping, and they're due to arrive by the end of the year. I think when I put my pre-order in, right when it launched, it said it'll ship in October, and I believe the website now says November, but I could have just gotten that wrong. Either way, I think by the end of the year is a fair estimate. And I'm not sure how they're going to be doing these pre-orders. I don't know if it's going to roll into different batches if they get too many of them. So if this is something that you wanted, I would definitely buy it on the sooner side. But it is looking to be the VMU for the Dreamcast with every option you could possibly imagine. And the main page has all of the specs on it. I copied and pasted a bunch of them into the post if anybody's interested. And I hope we'll see a cool launch video on it soon, because I think having a video that shows all this stuff in depth would be another reason for people to buy it. But I just think it's absolutely awesome, and I'm happy that I picked one up. And I'm really looking forward to just kind of messing with it and seeing what it could do. But anyway, this is like I talked about last week, it's basically the MemCard Pro, but for the Dreamcast, but in a VMU shell with an awesome screen and USB-C battery charging. And check out the post for all the info, but this looks like an awesome product, and I'm really looking forward to getting it. This next one is for anybody who owns A-series Sony BVM RGB monitors. Martin Heinfeldt's BKM 68X alternatives are now in stock at Castlemania and ready to ship. No pre-orders or anything like that. Just if you need one of these to get RGB into those monitors, you could pick it up for $325 and it'll ship basically right away. I believe the Extreme version is also in stock from a UK seller, which just adds different inputs, same exact features and performance. You just get different input choices. So like if you want VGA, you don't need adapters or anything like that. The site said pre-order, but then it also said in stock. So maybe they just forgot to update the text, but links to everything are in there. Wherever you live, I would just check both of them and see, including shipping, what's going to be the better option. But basically, this version of the 68X is supposed to be a drop-in replacement. So it has BNC ins and outs, just like the original 68X did. And you don't need terminators on it if you don't ever use the outputs. You could just flip the switches on the inside and not have to worry about it. Or you could use terminators, or you could just route it through your A-series out into a scaler or another monitor. It's actually much more handy to have outputs on the video input side than you would expect, especially if down the line you get into streaming and stuff like that. The Extreme version that's available from the UK seller has D-Sub, component video RCA inputs, and a SCART input as well. But all of those signals will work through this. You just need to get the different adapter cables, just like with the originals. And if you're kind of new to the scene and you're wondering why this is a big deal and why it's $325 is an exciting price, it's because the originals are so rare that they'll sell for thousands of dollars. And even the originals had a couple of issues syncing with retro game consoles, because by the time the A-series BVMs came out, even though they were CRTs, they were focused on high definition signals. So it definitely could do 480i, but it was only meant for TV signals. And then 480p, 720p, 1080i would all work through them as well. But when you plugged the original consoles into it, Master System had issues and a couple of others, but this fixes a lot of that. I did a launch video for the product years ago that still holds up, because it's regardless of what version that you pick, the signals are going to be the same. So check that out if you're interested. But I'm glad to see these back in stock, because this is just one of those things that if you have an A-series BVM, you're really limited unless you have one of these. And I do believe there's some calibration things where you need the original to access certain menus, but that's not something that's going to be solved anytime soon. So if you just want to get RGB or component into your A-series BVM at basically any resolution from 240p to 1080i, these are the ones to pick. Either the one that I made the post on or the other one that I linked to here. And once again, maybe region should be the number one selecting factor, assuming the other one's in stock, just to see what the total cost plus shipping would be. And secondary would be what inputs do you need. J&T Studios have just started selling a braided controller cable for Super Nintendo and Super Famicom controllers. This one's going to require a little bit of soldering, but that's really the only downside of it. The price is about $15, and you could choose between the short Super Famicom length or the standard Super Nintendo style length. And the prices are normally a little higher. I think this is like a launch sale or something like that, but it was 18 to 20 would be the normal prices depending on the length. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these, a while back, J&T Studios released braided controllers for NES and Famicom consoles, and it's meant to be a high-quality replacement with all of the standard pins populated with the braided style cable that you might get with like a quality USB cable these days. So it's one of those things where if your original cable is in perfect shape and you don't mind the length of it, there's probably, respectfully, no reason at all to upgrade. But if you have a Super Famicom, especially if you have a Super Famicom controller with the cable that's all gnarly and chewed out, you might want to upgrade to the SNES version so you get the longer length. Either way, though, if you have a beat up, nasty controller cable, this is definitely one that you should consider because it's just higher quality. Sure, you could probably get one for $1 on AliExpress, but you get what you pay for. So if you like braided style controller cables, if you'd like this as like a fun upgrade for something that's already beat up and you probably need to replace anyway, definitely consider it. One problem though, unlike the NES one, which is just plug and play, the connector that was used on the inside of the Super Nintendo controller and Super Famicom controller is no longer used. So J&T Studios had no choice other than to include a newer connector that you would have to desolder the original and then solder this one in its place, and then you plug it in from there. So if this braided cable gets damaged in the future, the next one you put in would be plug and play. But if you wanted to go back to an original, you'd either have to direct solder it or put the other pins, the connector pin back. So not J&T Studios' fault by any means. They had to just work with what they have. But I know that's going to be a deterrent for people who would prefer just using a screwdriver to swap things out. So that's definitely something to think about. But if you have even the cheapest desoldering iron, this should be fine. This should be about as basic as it gets. So check this out if you're interested, but I like this stuff, not in every scenario, but definitely if you have a chewed up, nasty controller cable, this would certainly be one that would be a help to replace it. And speaking of SNES controllers, I was able to take a look at Retro Game Restore's production samples of their Super Nintendo controllers, which also work with Super Famicom, and they are all transparent, made to match their console shells as well. And they are the exact high quality that you would expect from Retro Game Restore. Good hefty plastic, no cheap garbage or anything like that. And they fit original controllers perfectly. So you could pop out the PCB and the buttons and everything and just use those right into here. If your controller cable is frayed, you might want to go back and get that J&T Studio cable that I just talked about a couple minutes ago. And it just looks like something where if you have one of their clear console shells, this might be worth it. Right now, they're currently shipping from Retro Game Restore, which means if you had pre-ordered yours previously from other stores, they're en route to those stores now, and then they'll be shipped to you shortly. So if you'd already ordered them, they are definitely late to ship, but they're probably on their way to you now or are about to be. And if you pre-order right now, they should start shipping basically right away. So if you order from Retro Game Restore, they'll ship almost now. And if you order from any of those other resellers of it, they'll ship as soon as they get stock of it. All pre-orders placed before last August will ship with a clear D-pad as well as Super Famicom convex style clear buttons, which look cool, but you could also just use the originals for some neat color contrast and hold on to these if you need spares. And the only other thing to note is it probably won't work with third-party controllers. I tried a RetroFlag controller and it was off. One of the mounting pins was off by a very small amount. And to be honest, on the controller itself, it was a part of the PCB that didn't have any kind of circuitry. So if I really wanted to use it, I could probably just drill a hole through the PCB and it wouldn't matter at all. It's just my opinion here, but I'd rather hack up the PCB of a cheap $15, probably not that great Super Nintendo controller than hack up this brand new shell. But if you have something that's important to you, now's the time. You're not destroying original controller shells. You're getting a third-party shell that's kind of supposed to be modified for you. So just kind of my thoughts on that. But I would really love to put together some repairs. So if anybody has broken, nasty Super Nintendo or Super Famicom controllers, please let me know in the comments and I'll buy them off you. I want 4 total, so that way I could take 4 controllers that were probably never going to be used again and repurpose them. I'll buy some of the J&T Studio braided cables, and I got some of the extra buttons here. So if even the buttons on your controller don't work, meaning the plastic buttons are broken, then I wouldn't even need those. And while the membranes would be nice, I could always get some cheap replacements now. That's the one thing that we're really missing is very high quality membranes for Super Nintendo controllers, because a lot of the third-party ones are terrible, and even my original controllers are starting to wear down pretty badly now, where I'm at the point where I only have one that is actually reliable. So yeah, I think hopefully Retro Game Restore and J&T Studio will look into the membranes as well. But for now, if you want their clear controller cases or clear controller shells to match their console cases, these are definitely it. It comes in transparent, like just clear, smoke transparent, purple transparent, and I also got sent a red one, which they may or may not make. They just kind of wanted to see how it came out, and I thought it came out really nicely. So yeah, check out my little social media post, YouTube short thing if you're interested. Links to buy them are right here. And once again, if you have any beat up, like really damaged Super Nintendo or Super Famicom controllers. As long as the PCB works, or if you think it might work, please let me know and I'll buy them off you. So that way I could take these and turn them into, brand new Super Nintendo controllers. The SegaXtreme 30th anniversary game competition has come to a close, and the winners in original games category is Micromotor Mayhem. The English translation of Mobile Suit Gundam won the Hacks, Patches, and Translations category, and the Saturn Ring Library won in the Tools and Utilities category. In Dan's post, that you have all of the info that you need. You get some screenshots and the lists of all of the submissions as well. And while I congratulate the winners, I'm sure I say this every year, but honestly, it's just awesome to see so much cool new software for older consoles like this. A lot of very cool things have come out of the competition, and I believe there was even a few things that started out as just like a example demo for the competition that ended up being modified into a lot more, and it grew into even bigger projects. So, also, it's not just about highlighting and celebrating homebrew efforts. There was a cash pool of nearly $850 and some 3D printed Saturn accessories to give away as well. So if you want more details, go to Emerald Nova's website, which is linked right here. And of course, Dan's post has everything that you would need. But it's just very cool to see this stuff because there's always so much amazing stuff coming out of retro homebrew. RetroRGB's VirtualBoy Bluetooth adapter is now available for sale at Stone Age Gamer, and this is not for everybody. I mean that with love. I'm obviously a massive fan of everything for the Virtual Boy and all this cool retro stuff, but the price is $120. So if you're somebody who used a virtual tap to take a smashed up and broken Virtual Boy and make it into a consoleized version, then that's absolutely awesome, but you're probably not liking being tethered via the short controller cable. And even if you had an extension cable, there's a lot of stuff to wire in and deal with. So if you just wanted a Bluetooth adapter that has power and reset built in, this is probably a great choice if you're willing to spend the extra money on it. If you got the budget for this and you love your consoleized Virtual Boy, then absolutely. But if you already have a working setup, I'm not sure you'd want to spend all the cash on it. And even if you want to just use your Virtual Boy in regular mode, not being tethered with a cable is awesome. However, do you need to spend the money on it if you're sitting right in front of the Virtual Boy anyway? And once again, nothing but love for Kevin Malott, who makes these awesome RetroRGB products. I just always like to be fair about things. Sometimes I really think that everybody in retro might want to consider something, and other times it's obvious that it's a niche item that the people who buy it will probably love it, but not everybody's going to want to. As you'd expect, this is powered by Blue Retro, Darth Cloud's absolutely awesome open source platform, which means that if you use controllers like the PS5 controller, it's extremely low latency and really impressive for a Bluetooth controller. So basically, check out the post for links if you want any of it. And if you want to see more awesome accessories for the Virtual Boy, Kevin and I did a live stream back in 2022 that's mostly still relevant. There's a lot of new stuff that's come out since, but I think it really puts into perspective. I guess the first 15-20 minutes showed all the hardware for the scene that was available at the time, and then I showed off some homebrew games as well. But I just think it's a good example of how many awesome new products and games are available for the Virtual Boy. So check out links if you're interested. Homebrew developer E.G. Vroom just posted a new Game Boy Color project titled What If OutRun, which is literally that. It's a proof of concept ROM that kind of imagines what if OutRun was properly ported to the Game Boy Color. And it's not a full game or anything. It's 2 levels with a 40-second timer to complete each of them, with awesome music arranged by Sloopy Goop that really just shows what could happen on the Game Boy Color. And it seems just like, it kind of feels exactly like what you would expect. A really like an 8-bit almost version of OutRun with good music, and it seems to be running at a decent frame rate as well. So if you want to try this out, obviously anybody with some way to run ROMs on your Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance could do it, but you could also just try it right in the browser on the main website. If you want more info, check out Selena's post, but it just looks fun and impressive, and I tried it in the browser and it just seemed cool. So if you're a fan of homebrew stuff for the Game Boy Color, absolutely try this one out. And really, it's free. So if you have a ROM or ROM cart, just download this sucker, give it a try, and see what you think. And if not, you might even want to still just fire it up in a browser and see what it's like, because I thought it was very cool. Next up, developer Derek Pescarilla just released an SD card manager for Saturn Rhea or Phoebe optical drive emulator users. So the very short overview, which Derek goes over in detail in his post, is that those ODEs perform very well, but the management on them is a pain. You have to have these numbered folders, you have to keep track of everything, and while you can use different menus with it, you still have to deal with sorting the SD card by itself. So this software that Derek came up with, which is not a GUI, but it's also not the command line. You get to make choices when you fire it up. It does run in a terminal window, but whatever, or a command window. I guess I've been using Linux too much. I keep calling it terminal window. But anyway, so this is something where if you already have a working SD card on your Rhea or Phoebe, you could do a migration to use it with that. So you basically just run software on it. And if you want to add or change games, you create a new folder and then just basically drop it over the executable and follow the prompts in order to make it more manageable. I'm kind of oversimplifying here. This does a lot more than that, and please check out Derek's post for all the info. But basically, this is something that if you own a Rhea or Phoebe and you ever make changes to the game list ever, you probably should be using this right away. And if you already have your games set up and you don't really add or take anything away, fine, but there's all that awesome homebrew coming out too that I just talked about before. So this seems like something you'd really want to learn how to use. And also there's even a separate script for users to batch convert their disk images to the format supported by the Rhea and Phoebe. So this really is aiming to be whatever you need if you have one of these ODEs to simplify getting everything up and running on it. So thanks to Derek for constantly making cool stuff like this. And please check out the post if you want info. And basically, in short, if you own a Rhea or Phoebe for your Saturn, read this post. Well, that's it for this week. Please don't forget, if you have any Super Nintendo or Super Famicom controllers that are in absolutely horrible condition, cracked plastic, eaten up and frayed cables, message me or post in the comments and I'll try to buy them off you, because I want 4 total to see if I could do full refurbishing using these awesome cases or the shell replacements that I got. And hopefully I can get some of those braided cables and maybe even test out some different membrane alternatives as well. So message me anywhere you know how to find me, or just post in the comments, and I'll hopefully be able to buy a couple of these to start messing around with on a live stream. But anyway, as always, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thanks again, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.